good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying good morning, good afternoon anywhere because we are we've got a bit of an eerie look going on. I've got nice pink lights in the background, purple lights in the background. I'm kind of looking eerie. I'm playing with different lighting situations. Jeff and I are here again to talk about what he's been doing today. The roving bug man has been out and about. Jeff, where have you been?
So today we were in Santa Clarita and acting a little bit, but mostly Santa Clarita. And I'll tell you, it was one heck of a day, because the weather's been all over the map. So we had times when it was sunny and dry, and then other times where there was some drizzle, and the roads got a little slick, and that was always fun. But yeah, overall, another good day in. And plenty of adventures to find out there. So keeping busy.
What's it like roundabout? I was going to ask you this, and I meant to ask you this before because obviously, California is a vast area, as we know.
It really is. Yeah.
But there's always an issue. I want to talk about when somebody in Santa Clarita, on one end of Santa Clarita to the other, and there's an emergency call out.
Right.
Let's talk about expectations, because if you're on the other end of Santa Clarita,
right.
What are we talking about in terms of traffic getting there? And
it's a packed town, and it's getting more and more packed. So I remember, there was a time when you could get from Canyon Country over to Valencia in 10-15 minutes. Those were the good old days. It wasn't so packed. There was maybe one or two routes you could take to get there. But it took time. Now they have extended some back routes, as things get bigger out there. They're opening up, alternate routes to get, let's say you need to get from Sierra Highway to Plum Canyon. You can cut through now. There's a road that actually goes through, and making a discovery like that shaves off a lot of time. So used to be you'd have to go all the way around, go through town, go through all the stoplights.
Now you can take
now there's a road. Here's the thing. It's got like 3 roundabouts, so it keeps moving. It's great.
But here's the thing. You and I both know when there's a lot of roadworks going on, it displaces the environment. And so it also displaces the pests.
Yes, big time.
And so you have you seen it, with any kind of new construction in Santa Clarita area?
Yeah.
Have you seen a kind of a change in the amount of pest calls that are coming in from that area?
It definitely moves everybody around, from ants to rats to, you name it. They're all on the move. They start grading and flattening out certain areas and getting it ready, for everybody's foundation to be poured. And they're building a whole new subdivision or neighborhood. Or even if they're just on, one of the major corners, putting in a whole new shopping plaza to accommodate, the growth in town here. It's been interesting to see from a pest standpoint who's getting more pressure put on them in the neighborhoods adjacent, and we see it. We really do. So ant calls go up.
What are you seeing more of in Santa Clarita? Ants, roaches? What's? I mean, obviously ants, as we know, we've talked about this a million times. They're there all year round. But
a lot of that, definitely. But this winter, we've been getting an increase in rodent activity, and
I know there's been a lot, isn't there?
Really has, really has. I know we just recently had the fires down the hill, so that might have moved some things as well.
That's what I was going to talk about, because you and I, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't listened to the podcast we did before, the episode we did before, we talked about the fires and how devastating it was and how terrible it is for everybody. However, these fires do displace. They have displaced a lot of
many critters.
And there's predators have been displaced. Pests have been. There's a lot of. So I think that's what you're getting the back end of is rodents that are escaping from the danger zone.
That's right.
And they're coming to Santa Clarita. Highway to the danger zone.
Yeah, they really are. And I've even talked to one client, and he's in there's a lot of parts of town that are real hilly. And his neighborhood is no exception. It's an easy jog down the hill, but boy, I tell you, you're really jogging up that hill. And, while we're driving those hills, we're mindful of that. And just parking, you're always, you're putting the wheels a certain way so you don't roll down the hill if falls out of park or whatever. But the the thing that he noticed was more wildlife, even some of the larger critters that are out of our wheelhouse,
because they're
coyotes
displaced.
and bobcats. Yeah.
They're totally displaced because of the disaster, and so they're having to go somewhere, and they're going. Like I said, I'm not going to sing again, but highway to the danger zone. That's a highway from the danger zone. They're going. They're getting out of there, and they're heading towards
nice green, lush hills out there in between all these neighborhoods. So and then of course, what are the rats going to do? They don't want to be eaten, so they're going into people's attics and. They're finding real quick that they're hearing noises up above their ceiling, and of course we get a call. Hey, I think there might be something up there. And of course, if it's loud, if they're being obnoxious, the first thought that most people have is we think there's raccoons up there because there's quite a ruckus going on up above our ceiling, and
then find out it's rats.
Yeah, get up there, you see the roof rat droppings, or, other evidence. You look at the footprints in the dust, and you see some rub mark or grease mark. You go, oh, yeah, there have been roof rats in here. Here's, what we need to do. And, we go around, we look, we make sure we find all the openings that they're using to exploit to get into the structure. But, like today, for instance, the drizzle starts coming down. These guys want to be warm and dry. So we've had an uptick in that recently. But this last summer, tons of mosquitoes. I mean, a lot of folks that didn't have a problem.
I was going to ask you that because there's been a lot of there was a lot of problem last season, and obviously we would urge you, ladies and gentlemen, if you live in Santa Clarita area, you definitely want to start jumping onto that mosquito prevention straight away because the season's going to be coming in fast.
Yes.
And we're around the corner. We're knocking.
We're just a few weeks away from the official start of mosquito season.
Official start of the season, and I would venture that we're starting early.
We probably are because we've had a couple of warm, sunny days right after a rain,
said that.
And that's just ideal conditions because it's warm, it's sunny, but the humidity's still high because everything hasn't really fully dried out yet. So you can almost see from some of the wetter areas. When the sun comes out, you can almost see the kind of, I don't want to say steam, but the
haziness.
More like, the moisture kind of rising up in the air from the heat, you can actually visibly see that. And so I think to myself, oh boy, here we go. We're going to have a doozy of a time with these mosquitoes again. So I know last summer, a lot of folks.
Let's remind everybody, Jeff, that mosquitoes, even mosquitoes they're not just an annoyance factor. I mean, they literally are. Ladies and gentlemen, this may actually shock you, but the mosquito is the deadliest vector on the planet.
It really
carries a plethora of diseases. Dengue fever, yellow fever. There's malaria, obviously. That we most people just think about malaria, but it is a carrier of really deadly diseases, and you can't single out a mosquito and think, well, that mosquito or those mosquitoes are not infected. You don't know.
Yeah. You just don't know.
No, you don't. Yeah. And it's
all blood to blood, and so
absolutely.
Who did they bite before they bit you? And
here's the thing, and I would suggest this as well, Jeff, is that because we've got a heightened awareness or an increase in activity with wildlife, there's a very high risk that those mosquitoes are feeding. They will feed on that wildlife, and then they could be biting you next.
And with all the wildlife moving around too, and it's not something that comes up often, but when it comes up, it's usually okay. Yes, this is confirmed. Fleas, and we know what a nuisance, but not only a nuisance, but also fleas can be a problem, and ticks, of course.
Well, fleas carry the bubonic plague.
That's right, and that's how. The plague that in history class we learned about. And
I think it was 13. I could be wrong. And if anybody wants to correct me, then feel free. But I think it was
Oh yeah,
1374.
chime in the comments. But I think you're right on that.
I think it was the 13th
and it was
century,
rats carrying
and
fleas
it was brought over from Europe, and then it hit Europe, and millions died. But here's the interesting thing, though, ladies and gentlemen. We've had, in the past 5 years in America alone, we have had several cases of plague.
That's right, of actual plague. I mean, and this was something that wiped out, what was it, a third of the population of Europe?
A third of the population. Millions and millions and millions.
Yeah, millions of people. And, I mean, it's funny to watch, like Monty Python.
Oh my God, dude. I love Monty Python.
But that's because it's such a distant past memory. We can, kind of make light of it, but then, it's a serious thing. So, that's where we come in again. Fleas, ticks with the Lyme disease. Those.
Here's
things
the thing that you're jumping. Actually, something to talk about here is the flea side of things, because even just beyond the bubonic plague, here's one of the things that happen, guys. Fleas. And they multiply fast. Their life cycle, within 7 days, these guys are and vibration. So when you walk in vibration,
that's right.
They feel them. The eggs will hatch, and then they're looking for a feed. But here's the thing: a lot of people go on vacation, and they may have a pet, and they put a pet in the thing, but they don't realize that while they're away on vacation, they haven't treated. So
that's right.
You've got the perfect storm.
Yes.
Breeding in your home, waiting for you to come home.
Waiting for you to come home, yep.
Even if you don't have a pet, it could still be a threat. This is why it's important to keep up with regular pest control. But if you do have a pet and you're ready to go on that vacation, and you put your pet in boarding, you don't realize that you should have actually still been treating your home before you leave.
Right. That's right. I mean, I've had people that they go on vacation. Of course, we're not going to know that they went on vacation. We're just doing our regular, routine maintenance. But, they get back and they say, hey, we just got back. We were out of state for a couple weeks. We just got back. And we noticed a trail of ants in the garage, or something like that. And I go, oh, okay, good. He goes, I don't know if it's because we weren't here. And I go, yeah, now the cat's away. The mice will play. But like you said, who knows what types of critters are going in the yard when nobody's around, or in the middle of the night. Could be raccoons, could be opossums, could, something larger like the bobcats, the
coyotes.
Yeah. And they could be infested with these fleas.
They normally are, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, wild animals tend to have a lot of fleas.
And your pet can pick it up, because your pet doesn't know to keep away from wildlife. It will chase the wildlife, or even if it's a dead wildlife, will look at it, and before you know it, the fleas have because fleas they do jump.
They do jump, yeah, and they'll hang out just in the grass and wait to jump onto the pet.
What was that? I remember when we were studying entomology back in the day. It was equivalent, I think, of a flea jump was equivalent of jumping. Again, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but as high as the Empire State Building. I know we lost the Twin Towers, but as high as that, right?
I remember from the early days training, I think that we did cover that ground, and then also in one of the CEU courses. And I think you're right. I think it's the equivalent of one of us jumping.
An equivalent of a skyscraper building that can jump, right? And it takes a little bit of vibration.
I mean, they can really, really cover some serious distance with how far they get. I mean, relative to their size and weight and everything, they can really jump.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're like super fleas,
Super fleas, yeah, exactly.
Super fleas. We can jump a building in one tall leap.
The way they're built.
But you think about it,
you can smash it, but it's already flat, so it's it's not as easy to kill as picking up another bug and squashing it, because they don't really squash easy. You got to use some flea specific products to really break the cycle.
You've got to destroy the biological life cycle.
That's it. You've really got to go in there hard for fleas.
So you guys, so if you're going on holiday and you're going on vacation, you have to think about that as well.
Yeah, and then another thing to consider, if you're going on holiday or you're going on vacation, are you staying in a hotel? Well, hospitality industry, they're so susceptible to bed bugs, so that's another thing to consider. And we've had a couple of those pop up.
Has there been many bed bug infestations in Santa Clarita?
A
that
few
you've come
pop
across?
up here and there, and it's almost always somebody's been traveling.
Yeah.
Stayed in hotels somewhere. Traveled for business, traveled for leisure, but almost always traveled, and that's how they end up with down the line from that. Oh no, we're infested with bed bugs. What do we do next? Well, we can fix it definitely, but it's an involved process. It's a big job, but it's one we're willing to do because like you said, you go on vacation, you go on holiday, you take your
You come
pets.
by.
You have to worry about things like fleas. You have to worry about things like ticks. And unfortunately, because of the hotels that we service, we know just how susceptible the hospitality industry is to
Yeah.
bed bugs.
Oh, absolutely. It can
A
destroy the
good hotel
reputation
has
as
a
well.
good protocol for it, but I mean, they get spread around.
They do, and it can destroy a business.
Oh, big time.
Before we finish off, Jeff, is like in all of these little chats that we have.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the same thing again. What has been the worst case that you've had in Santa Clarita?
Oh, gotcha. So we actually went to a house that in Santa Clarita had rodents in the attic. And they weren't particularly light sleepers, so they didn't realize there was a rodent problem in the attic.
Yeah,
What they did was they had, first the light switch stopped working. They replaced the bulb, and then it still wasn't working. They said, we'll get an electrician out down the line. But then
yeah,
it
I
was
know it's coming.
oh yeah. Then it was the dead of summer, and the AC stopped working, and so they booked an appointment with HVAC company, and of course they're very busy during the summer doing a lot of AC repair because it gets so hot here you have to have it. So they were
Absolutely.
2 days out for an appointment for their AC, and they, fans and cranked up the swamp cooler and did what they can to keep cool. But I mean, these were, 100 plus degree days in the middle of the summer. But before the HVAC technician could make it out there to determine that the wires had been chewed in the attic, they
Wow.
also had PEX piping, and it ran
And that's
through their
that's
attic.
also a fire risk. People don't realize that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It really is because I mean, those wires arc or spark. That can be a problem, and I mean, it's hot and dry up in that attic, so yeah, that could
Absolutely.
really spark something. But no, in their case, they got the opposite. The PEX piping that ran through their attic. Apparently, the rodent was a little thirsty, and I'll tell you, PEX piping is real easy for them to chew a hole in. So in the middle of the night, their house got flooded, and then it was determined that it was the rats in the attic that had done all this damage. They chewed the wires on the AC. They chewed some of the electrical that ran from that light switch. But most
Wow.
importantly, they chewed that PEX piping and caused a flood in the house. Now the insurance took care of everything, but we came
Sorry,
in
say,
at the
say that
tail
again.
end.
The insurance. I just wanted to hear that you
Oh
actually
yeah.
said insurance actually did take care of it
You
because
know,
normally,
crazy is that, right? The insurance actually took care of the flooding damage. They took care of the AC, and they took care of the broken electrical. So I mean, they got all new floors. They got basically a
yeah.
partial remodel of their
And I
place.
hope, I hope they got you to make sure that the pest control was a regular.
Right. So what this particular client did is of course the insurance didn't cover the rodent exclusion, which of course I didn't think they generally won't. But so
No.
that was the homeowner took care of that direct with us. We did all the rodent exclusion, did trapping, caught whoever was left in there, got them out, and but you're right, they did start pest control service. Well, actually, they went one step up. They went to Pro Plus and got the pest and rodent service, and they've been a good client. This is going on 2 years now, but that was one of the worst
Wow.
cases we'd seen in Santa Clarita, where I mean they were displaced from their home, had to go stay in an Airbnb for about 8 weeks while their place was
Wow.
basically gutted and remodeled from the
Wow.
top down. Yeah.
So, guys, listen. From what you're hearing from us today, if you live in Santa Clarita
Yes.
and as beautiful as it is in the area, and as great as you would love it, you've
Mhm.
also got to be very careful of the pests there, especially when there's been local fires, and especially when you think about how damaging pests can be, whether it's rodents, ants, or anything. especially how dangerous they can be with mosquitoes and fleas.
Yep.
Be proactive, don't be reactive. Jeff and I are always crying that out. Be proactive, don't be reactive.
That's right.
Because reactive costs you a lot more money in the long term.
Yes, absolutely. And I've talked to a few of the owners there, and it really is a big investment to purchase property there. It's become a real prominent area. It's a good area, beautiful area, and just generally a great place to live. But yeah, one of the best things you can do to protect your investment is get pros coming out on a regular, routine basis. Keeping an eye out for these things. But if nothing else, too. If you notice something and you're on service, you're our eyes and ears. You could let us know, and then we can get on it and get ahead of it instead of letting it get to the point where it's overwhelming. But that makes a big difference, So open lines of communication are vital and essential. And most of I would say the overwhelming majority of our clients there are really good on communication, which helps us immensely because they tell us, hey, just a heads up, I noticed this, or, this is what's going on, or that's happening. And it's like, oh, great. The more information we're armed with, the more we can help you protect your investment here. So, that's a big
important.
deal.
That's important to say. You're protecting your investment, ladies and gentlemen.
Big time. And it's a substantial investment to live there. I've watched over the years. I kind of grew up in the area, but properties are very, very expensive in that area now. So it's a huge investment. You want to protect it.
Yeah, you want to protect it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you come across any creepy crawlies, things that make your wife or even your husband scream, right? Because husbands do that as well. I can tell you. I can assure you, they can do it. I've seen it. I've witnessed it.
Yep.
Then get in touch with us. FirstResponsePC.com. Give us a call. Ash in the office. We'll get you hooked up. We'll get the team over there. But if you just want to reach out, and if you've heard us, if you follow this podcast, if you've got any questions, reach out to us as well. Mention that you heard on the podcast, and we'll actually get you a discount as well. You listen to the podcast, you like our podcast, and show it some love, then we'll show you some love back and give you a good discount. But either way, this is about us educating you and having a chat. We're going to be back when we have the roving bugman. I'm going to have to think a cool name. Jeff out there on the roving bugman, the wandering bugman, something like that.
Yeah,
and we'll be back
absolutely.
when we're going to talk about another day in the life of First Response Pest Control. God bless.